Blessed Mabon, everyone, or fall equinox, if you will. Welcome to another episode of Beats and Breakdowns, where we are going to get into the harvest gods, Mabon, the Celtics, the Welsh, Persephone and Hades, different types of harvest gods from around the world, and the reasons for the seasons every year. So stick with us. We have an amazing show for you today, and we cannot wait to get started. So where does the word equinox even come from? Where do we begin with all of this? Well, the Latins are making a very, very important return right now because the word equinox actually comes from the phrase equi, meaning equal, and nox, meaning night, which is pretty self-explanatory and simple. So together it makes equal night. So literally equal day, equal night. That being said, the Latin's making a comeback in the second video of this series. So what is Mabon anyway, right? So what is this holiday that's so important to so many different belief systems and the pagans and the Wiccans and everybody in between? And where did the modern version that a lot of people talk about come from? Where does our modern paganism belief system sort of get this from? Mabon, or Mabon as many Americans pronounce it, is one of the 8 sabbats on the Wheel of the Year. Now, a sabbat is the name of a pagan holiday, right? It's just what they call them. I, upon some research, before my research team got to this, kept finding Sabbath, which is the holy day in Judaism and Catholicism. So, not that. They're a little different. We're off by a letter. The Sabbat is the name for the pagan holidays on the Wheel of the Year, and the Wheel of the Year, that's its own video. We will get into that very soon. Some neo-pagan practitioners and Wiccans believe that Mabon is the final Sabbat of the season, while many others argue that it's not, that there's still one more, and that last one is technically Samhain. So Samhain is basically the equivalent of Halloween, which again will be its own video, but there are some back and forth about whether Mabon or Samhain are really the which one is the last holiday, of the season of the year. And I think it kind of depends on what your belief system is and where your celebrations lie. I think it is also a very big cultural thing as well. Think about it this way, right? When you look at an animal who is getting prepared for the winter season, they can't hunt during the winter, right? So they need to prepare. They need to come in. They need to start, eating a lot to prepare themselves for the winter cold. They need to start gathering their food together so they have enough in hibernation for themselves or their families. They need to prepare for the dark season. This season is meant for, protecting and bringing yourself together and being grateful for the things that you have, so that way in the next cycle, you can release the things that no longer serve you and start a new beginning. So to celebrate this holiday, practitioners will put out foods for their deities and, celebrate with them. And they will actually use food from the end of the harvest. Now, if you don't know what food is from the end of the harvest, think of things that are in a cornucopia photo when you look at like a Thanksgiving feast, right? So something like that is corn and wine and bread and tomatoes, wheat, things like that. And now I'm making myself hungry. Jesus Christ. Food isn't the only way to honor the deities or those that are practicing the Sabbat. This is not the only way they go about it. They actually set up their altars as well. So your altar is like this. Think of when you go into a church and you see the big altar there. The altars will have statues of their deities, or it'll have, food from the harvest, and they'll honor their deities through there by giving them other offerings besides food. So items that belong to their deities or belong to their stories. Think of it that way, right? And that's how they celebrate the Sabbat. A lot of the times they'll like zhuzh up the altars in a way that's part of this ceremony called the circle ceremony. Before I start talking about circle ceremonies, I will be using Drunken Flush today, which I'm so excited about. I'm going to be using it on my cheeks again. It's so pretty. It's probably like one of my favorite products that we've made so far. It's an eye, lip, and cheek tint. This is also really good for Mabon because this is a offering to the god Dionysus. We designed this entirely after Dionysus, so he practices with food of the harvest, so wine and grapes and wheat and things like that. So this is just a little Mabon treat today. And then I'm gonna take a dome brush like this, a little bunny tail, and this is super pigmented, so I'm only gonna take a little bit, and I'm gonna place it on the highest points of my cheekies here. If you see me looking down this way, it's because I have my mirror here, and if you see me looking at the viewfinder, I'm trying to see how everything looks. I'm trying to look into the lens so I can look at you directly, and I'm so sorry. It's really hard. And what's good about this is that it is really pigmented to begin with, but I am an animal when it comes to blush, and I always want more, so I will be putting another layer of blush on top of this. And it will be just another layer of Drunken Flush because even after I put my powders on, it is still fire. It still looks so good. Even if I need to add a little bit of more of the blush, I can actually put this on top of powder and it doesn't disturb it and it doesn't like pill up like most of the other liquid blushes do. So that's my little selling point of this, is that you can actually use it over powder. Anyway, back to circle ceremonies. The best way to explain to you what a circle ceremony is kind of like imagining a Christmas gathering almost. Like not really, but kind of. It's like a believer or a group coming together to set up their altars with black and white candles to represent the equinox, right? You're protecting yourself and you're welcoming in the new and you're setting everything up and you're offering things to your deities, and it's a little bit of a kind of like a feasty thingy. I would say like a really good way to put it is like a feast, but not really, because you're celebrating your deities and you're being grateful for all of the amazing things that they've given you in the growth season. And we are, saying, yay, thank you, we're so ready for the next one, and we're ready for like the next thing that you're gonna give us because you bless us all the time, you know what I mean? So that being said, people will journal and meditate, and they'll highlight the things that they're grateful for at this time and give thanks in preparation for the next season of rest. That's the big thing about this Sabbat. It is a season of rest. So if you were doing a lot in that summer season and that spring season and you had a lot of growing and a lot of changing and a lot of things going on, you're praying that this season is the season of rest, because this is the time where things are going to start like rebuilding itself and reformulating itself, and you finally get a break and you get to take a nap. It's kind of one of those. It's kind of like the hustle and bustle of the summer and the spring is over, and now it's time to chill out. But what about the name Mabon, right? It's like a interesting name. It sounds like somebody's first name. So where does that come from though? Well, it's time to talk about the Welsh. Allegedly, according to our amazing research team and their extensive wealth of knowledge, this name comes from the Welsh tale of Mabon ap Modron. I'm really hoping I get that right. I looked it up. I did the pronunciations. I tried my best. I swear I got it. I think I did it. So if I butchered it, I'm so sorry. I really did look it up, but that's what the internet told me the pronunciation was. And I think I got it right. Mabon is the Welsh deity of youth. He was taken from his mother, Modron, who is also known as the Great Mother, when he was 3 days old. Now that seems to depend on who you ask. Some people will say that he was 3 days old. Some people say that he was 3 years old. But either way, that's a different kind of cradle robbing than most mythologies. Like, in a better way, I guess, but still not great. We're still, cradle robbing. And at least, it's not for marriage. Fret not, the young Mabon did not get married. He did end up being raised in a very magical cave and became a fabulous hunter. I mean, listen, he's a real resume builder, this one. LinkedIn's gonna love him. He brought himself up from nothing. Now, while many versions of this story do claim that he saved himself and, escaped from the cave and his captor, many say that he was actually saved by Kilhu, the cousin of King Arthur. And if it was not the cousin of King Arthur, many stories also claim that he was actually saved by King Arthur himself. So I'm gonna go ahead and believe that Mabon saved himself because he was a good hunter, and I like a rags to riches. I think he is somebody who sounds like he can save himself. He already got stolen at 3. I think he could, take himself out if he became a really good hunter. Remember, oftentimes these stories are passed down by word of mouth from generation to generation. So variations may change, and our research team, when I tell you they do insanely extensive work to try and get as many versions of these stories that are actually accurate to the original text as possible, I mean they try. So they're doing their best to get the most information that they can for your entertainment. So if we are talking about multiple different versions of the story, or going, a little bit, hey, this one said this one said that, or things like that, just know we're trying. They have done an insane amount of research for us. I'm also going to be using at this point the Narcissus palette mixed in with the Venus palette. We're going to go with like a fall-ish look today. So I think that's kind of what we're feeling anyway. So I'm going to start with taking Beautiful Hunter and putting it straight into the crease as the transition shade, just because I know I'm going in with some kind of insane colors. Now, keep in mind, this is not the only deity that's getting yoinked away and causing the whole fall season. So, kind of a common theme. Not a good common theme, but a common theme. But if you know anything about a story about a deity being pulled out of their home, then you know it's time to talk about the famed Hades and Persephone story. Now, you have totally heard this story in every way, shape, and form possible. I could only imagine. You've heard it from the original Hymn to Demeter. You've probably heard it from the disappointment that was Lore Olympus. And you've probably heard it in the most inappropriate, defamatory smut you could imagine.
The tea is exceptionally good today.
It is no secret that the story of Hades and Persephone is probably the most popular story in Greek mythology in a modern retelling sense. I mean, it makes sense why this story does so well in modern times. It has everything: a grieving mother, an innocent maiden minding her own business until a man comes and bothers her. Obviously, the story is revered, but it is also a story of obligation and balance and love, depending on who you ask. There are some people who argue that Persephone genuinely does love Hades, while others claim she has no choice in the matter, and this is just something that she has to do half the year. And if you're unfamiliar with the story, welcome out from under the rock. We're very happy you joined us. Here is my very colloquial take on the story of Hades and Persephone. Now, disclaimer, okay? This is me retelling the story in a very lighthearted, funny ha-ha way. My team has done extensive research on these topics, specifically the story of Hades and Persephone, because there's so many misconceptions on the internet about it. It can get a little draggy if I'm just telling you the story straight on, with just the very rigid and factual, exactly as the text says, way of doing it. I'm trying to have fun doing my makeup today, okay? I'm trying to let you have fun hearing these stories. That being said, please don't run to me in my comments and tell me, well, that's not what he said. I will give you the exact facts in a very funny, haha, lighthearted way. If you want a factual, less funny, haha, less colloquial retelling of the story of Hades and Persephone, please go to our blog, Narcissus Beauty Breakdown, for a longer version that's a little more serious. You can read it. This is just me being a little silly on the internet, okay? Okay, it's time for the story. The daughter of Demeter, Kor, translating to maiden, lived peacefully with her mother on earth, tending to nature's flora with nymphs and those who worked alongside her. Very peaceful, very fun. Hades, god of the underworld, and her uncle, I know, don't think about it too hard, different time, just make it work, spotted her. Hades decided that he must have her as his wife, and instead of asking Demeter, the woman that she spent the most time with, she asked her father. Now, I want you to take a wild guess. Who do you think her father may have been? I'll give you a second. Any thoughts? I'll give you one more second. Right. Everyone's daddy, Zeus. Ew! That's right. Zeus is her father. Demeter is her mother. Hades is her uncle. The family tree is a circle. Anyway, he asks Zeus and he says, hey, my dude, my brother, my guy, what's up? Listen, your daughter, your girl, and Zeus said, which one? He didn't, but I can only imagine he said which one. Your daughter, Kor, that one on Earth. She's kind of smoking hot, like really smoking hot. I need a queen for the underworld, and I can't seem to find anyone, and I want her. I'm always down there on my own, and I don't really get to do a lot of stuff, and I don't get to meet a lot of people, and it's like, not it. Can I have her? And Zeus, who is, canonically bad at joint custody, he turns around and he says, underworld, yeah, dude. Hades, yeah, dude. Brother, my girl is your girl. And he says this without hitting Demeter up first, so obviously we know this is gonna go well. So obviously Hades is super stoked about this because, like, why wouldn't he be? This is exactly what he wanted. And he's like, me, yeah. He waits for Kor to be alone in the field instead, again, of being a normal person and kind of just not being, like, weird. Now, while Kor is pretty innocently smelling a narcissus flower, wink, wink, nudge, nudge, Hades decides, now's my time. And he cracks open the earth and rides up from the underworld in a chariot and snatches her from the earth and into Hades. Now, if you don't know this, Hades is interchangeable with the underworld. It goes like that. But anyway, typical man behavior, just grabbing her without any permission. That seems great. Now, obviously and rightfully, Persephone screams on her way down. She is scared. Who wouldn't be? You're being taken away by a very strange man that you don't know while you're just trying to enjoy your flowers. And Demeter hears her. So Demeter hears her screaming, and like any good mother, she starts looking for her daughter far and wide, and she literally cannot find her anywhere. And her grief is displayed by the death of the agriculture and crops and a gray haze that kind of looms over the earth. The gray haze that looms over the earth is what's said to be the reason why we have autumn and the winter and the dead months. So she finally asks Zeus, she goes, hey dude, where's our daughter? And Zeus has to be like, which one? No, he didn't say that, obviously. He was like, oh, Kor? I don't know. Liar. And obviously Demeter knows he's lying, and she continues to make Earth infertile as long as he doesn't tell her. And because he's kind of over the whole, like, gray and people dying and, people crying about it and praying to him to ask it to stop, Zeus tells Demeter, okay, yeah, so, I promised your daughter, Kor, to Hades. Our brother? Yeah, I just forgot to tell you, my bad. Well, Demeter goes rightfully buck wild, and she demands to speak to Hades. Remember how Kor means maiden? Okay, Obviously, maiden, if you know the meaning of the word, is an unmarried woman. In some translations of the word, maiden specifically is an unmarried virginal woman. Kore is no longer that. This is where you may hear her start being referred from one name to another name. So from Kore, she is referred to as Persephone. And Kore is maybe just a title. There is a lot of speculation that the name Kore isn't actually her name. It's just the title, the fact that she's an unmarried virginal maiden and people just call her Kore, but her name is Persephone. Either way, she's referred to as Kore in the previous times where she is not married to Hades. So we know her as Persephone. We also know her as Kore. Could be a title, could be the name. Either way, from here on out, I will be referring to her as Persephone. But if you think about it, the name Persephone does make sense when you think about the Greek meaning of it. So Persephone literally is she who brings destruction, whether it means intentionally or unintentionally, she brought destruction to the earth by being abducted by Hades, and aka the reason we get the spring. So Kore becomes Persephone at this time. She is no longer married and assumed no longer virginous. Now that tends to go to the next half of the story where people assume what the actual... We'll get into that. Demeter finally gets access to Hades, yay, and demands her daughter to come back home. Which, like, duh, why wouldn't you? You literally yanked her out of her home, dude. Think about that.
Well...
So this is where the story starts to get a little bit sticky, figuratively and literally. So there are versions of this story that say that Hades tricks her into eating the 6 pomegranate seeds without her, realizing what can happen. There are also people that say that Persephone ate them on her own volition. There are certain studies that have been done that say that the pomegranate seeds aren't actually pomegranate seeds anyway, and they're a different kind of seed, if you kind of get my drift, which would explain the name of the artwork of the RIPE of Persephone, instead of like a kidnapping. It's very sticky when it comes to that. But either way, she did eat 6 pomegranate seeds, whether it's by force, by trickery, or by her own volition. Persephone eats the pomegranate seeds, and she tells Demeter that she ate the pomegranate seeds. And obviously, Hades craves a boon. He has something to gain out of this. So now, his wife ate the seeds of the underworld. She has to stay. That's the rule. So sorry, I had to do my eyeliner. If I didn't do it off camera, you would have just had me freaking out for like 5 minutes, and we can't have that again. So anyway, Demeter turns around and goes, hell no, give me my girl. And Hades goes, actually, she's my girl. So the two finally come to an agreement. Because she ate the seeds, Persephone does have to stay in the underworld. However, she can spend half the year on Earth. Great. Persephone can spend half the year with her mother on Earth, which is great because then Demeter's happy. And when Demeter's happy, that means we get warmth and we get, prosperous crops and we get greenery and we get beauty and we get all of this stuff. The Earth thrives on the warmth and Demeter's happiness. While the other half of the year, she does have to spend the rest of it without her daughter because Persephone will be in the underworld with her husband, leaving the earth desolate, gray, and cold because Demeter misses her daughter. The whole point behind the story is for the Greeks to have a reason why the seasons happen the way they happen. Pretty much. I mean, that's the whole concept of the story, but they're not original in that. Many other cultures from around the world have deities of the harvest and stories of why the fall is the reason for the fall. We've got Oko in the Yoruba mythologies. We've got Mithra from Persian mythologies. We've got Ugajin from Japanese mythologies. The list goes on. The Mabon harvest season is such a turning point in cultures around the world. There's so many more stories we can dive into about this. Please let us know if you want to hear any other Harvest God stories from around the world. And that is all I have for you today. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up and share it with your friends. Subscribe to our channel and turn on that bell if you like this video and want to see more beats and breakdowns and other series like it. And make sure to follow us on Instagram and TikTok to get more updates about Narcissus Beauty and our new products. Head over to narcissusbeauty.com to get your hands on the Drunken Flesh palette as well as the Narcissus palette. We are so excited for all the new stuff that we have coming out, and we are so abundantly thankful for each and every one of you that make this channel possible and this brand. So be safe, have a blessed Mabon, and fall in love with your reflection. Bye.